Okay, here it is, finally done. Holy cow. Took a lot of work. The tips of my fingers are so sore from cutting with razor blades and gluing my fingers together so many times. But it's in the can, so this one's a wrap. So I'm going to break this down, tear it apart for you guys, and as I tear it apart, I'll show you the build process and all the components. Then we'll put it back together and go out, prime it, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like all one color, all primed up. So as you can see, I've added a lot since the last time we looked at it. I based it, put a jaw on it, worked on the gun, worked on the claw, found a resolution for the wire in the back, glued the feet in a position, so now the feet are in a position and they won't move. Added the boom bits underneath. So let's go, let's break it down. So let's start with the gun. So obviously the cannon comes out. I changed this a bit. I added the poster board here. Give it kind of a railgun look. Added a little targeter. That's like his open sight. Custom made a clip. This comes off. So when we go to the Morkanot and Gorkanot, I can take that off, or like I told my son the other day, I just may leave it and just run it and just call this whatever gun I want to call it. I have an ejection port. So as you guys can see, one shell being fired, coming out, being ejected. So once I paint these shells a certain color, paint this shell the same color, right? It all makes sense. Ejection door is opening up as the shell is being expended. This also comes off, just to let you know. Right? So everything I do is mostly pins. I always pin everything. So as you can tell, this is pinned. This is pinned. Your arm is pinned. As we talked about before, this comes out and it goes in, clicks in, fits nicely. Ready to go. So let's work with the other arm. You guys have seen this one, not a lot of changes. This is also pinned. So we'll slide this out. So it's pinned. Hopefully you can see inside the gaps or the joints. I made it look like the orcs welded it. So now it looks like it's welded. As you guys know, of course, this is pinned. So when we put it on the Gorkanot, like we discussed, so we'll break this down because we're going to go prime it. Don't need to prime the pin, we'll leave that out. So now let's talk about the jaw. Well, let's debase it. So here's the base. Nice and flat, touching the surfaces. Looks like he's stepping, taking a step. Right, so that's perfect there. Still has rotation. So now let's debase it. So I also pin the base. So he has two pins, rear pin on the aft on his heel and one pin up front. Okay, working jaw. So this actually works. See? So if he wants to protect his face, armor plates, he throws that up. If he wants to rush at somebody and ram and gorge them or gouge them, takes off, runs, gouges them. So this is also pinned. Let's take the legs off. We don't need the legs. Legs are basic. You've seen the legs. They pin. So now this is pinned also. So that pin comes out. This here looks like a gear. What this is and this is from Home Depot. They're called lock washers. And then the inside one is also a lock washer. And you have inner and outer. So you have this one and this one. When you put them together, anyway, so unpin this, another pin, this comes out. So get ready to prime it, so it makes it easier to prime. So these are just slightly bent. You have the bracketry. So it looks like it's bracketed. Have the armor plates with the teeth. So let's talk about this. Working hatch. The orc inside. Now if I don't want to run the orc, he's magnetized. So very basic. Hatch closed. You can see that this is cardboard around the top. So I put an extra cardboard piece here, and then I did the welding. I sculpted. It made it look like they welded that top on or cut it with the torch, right? It's a big chunk of steel that they cut with the torch. So it looks like a cutting torch came in and hacked that piece of steel out. Again, working hatch with the handle, hatch mount, just some regular plastic tube with some screws, looks like bolts, screws. Check the hatch, got the bolts. Other arm, got the bolts like we talked about. I used sprue to make the spikes. On the engine deck, you can see my solution here. This came off of a burner buoy. It's glued on. Then we just stuck right next to it a little plastic piece of tube. So when this comes off, we discussed this in a previous video, you have the resolution of what to do with that little, this last little wire bit right here and where it plugs into. So when that pops in, that plugs right into there. And you put it nice and close to this with have a little gas valve. You put it nice and close to this it blends in, it's hidden. So you really, conceptually, when you look at this, you're like, oh yeah, that works. That just goes in. When you paint it, it'll look sweet. Again, so got the engine deck. Then the boom bits are from the Morkanaut, and they're just the big shooters, and they're pinned. So like I said, I like using pins. Just makes it easier to find things, and they don't get lost on the table. So when you end up packing up, getting ready to go home, and you get home, you're like, oh darn, I'm missing a part of my model. That way they're in there nice and solid. So that's the only reason I really don't magnetize a lot of stuff. It's just because I don't like things getting knocked off and banged around on the table, and then or when you're packing up, something falls off, or you knock it off. If it's just held on with a magnet, you end up leaving it. You're never going to find that piece again. So we're going to go out and prime it, and then once it's all one color, gray, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about this. Okay, I'm going to go prime it. We'll be back. Okay, here we go. Give you a little bit different shot. Give you a shot of the chopstick parade. So just a quick tip, if you can get yourself a cup, fill it full of some type of loose material. I've used sand here, but it helps in the priming process because you put these cups at your station as you're priming, wherever you set up, out in the garage, wherever you set these up. And as you're priming, you go ahead and you just jam in the chopsticks into the material, and it holds your parts in an upright position so that you don't have to actually lay them down on the cardboard or just anywhere. And that way you don't mess up your prime. So yeah, I just wanted to show you this little technique. Something very simple, but again, if you don't know, you don't know, right? So let me set the video back up in a right spot, and we'll start putting this thing back together, and we'll get back to finishing up this part 5 for this Mega Dread. Okay, so we got everything all set back up. So let's start popping these off. Should just hear a little click. You want to glue them in or attach them to some spot that's not going to be seen. So that way you don't see the little glue spot once you start painting. All back together, cleaned up a few things, had to reset a few things, but it's done. So now it's ready for paint. So let's go over this one more time. Let you guys get a good view, good look at it. See the difference? When you get everything together and all in primer, the model really comes together. Start painting it in the next couple days. I think I'm going to go Evil Suns. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it probably a coat of red. This metal plate in here, just to show you, there's a metal plate down there. that metal plate is actually a bottle cap. So what you do is you take a bottle cap and you go to a concrete floor like in the garage, take a hammer and you flatten out that bottle cap. Then you can go ahead and take a nice pair of scissors like this. This is a pretty heavy duty set of scissors. You can actually cut that bottle cap. A good strong pair of scissors will actually cut that thin material. A lot of times I'll use bottle caps and magnets in different locations, and if you just cut your piece of bottle cap in such a small little square and then bury it, you don't have to put dual magnets. You can actually take one magnet and not have to do dual. So real quick, just wanted to show you that. Okay, gonna wrap this one up. This one's done. I appreciate you watching all 5. If you stuck around to watch all 5 of the process on how to build this thing. I'm gonna post another video with this model, and we're gonna talk tactics on the Mega Dread and why I want to put this in my tournament list. I got a paint video in the works. I'm gonna actually show you how I paint. Everybody's got a paint video on their techniques, so I figured I would throw one up, show you guys how I paint models. I use a lot of dry brushing techniques, kind of old school in the way I paint. Share, like, and subscribe. Let all your friends know I'm out here. That's the only way people will be able to see my content. I appreciate you watching. Share, like, and subscribe, fellas. I appreciate all the support you can give me. Like we always say here on Every Man's 40K, may all your dice rolls come up 6s, unless you're looking for a 1. Peace out.